Hiya.
How you doing?
You alright? Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, are you? Sit down. Bang on time. That's what I like to see.
Perfect.
Yeah, just thinking, if you want to take photos up, and take photos up, or it's up to you if you, whatever you want to do. Just hang them on the door handle.
Thank you.
That's your name.
Yeah, Elder Van Alphen, right. Elder Hill what?
Right. So you have elders at the beginning of everybody's name, is it? Is that how it works?
Just for missionaries.
All right, I see. Just because if we're going to have a quite a long discussion, and obviously I tend to lose track sometimes of what people say, would you have any problem in me recording what we're going to say? Would that be okay with both of you? It needs to really be both of you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just get my screen camera. And then I can kind of play it back and, sort of like well, I said something wrong there, or you said something wrong, or I wasn't sure about something, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's, just let me see if I can get this.
Looks like a nice camera.
Well, it's quite old actually. It's I got it in 2007, so I could do with an upgrade, but I can't afford it at the moment. Recession and everything. Moving.
Are you into photography then?
Yeah, mainly still photography, not really videos. It's I do a lot of still photography because, especially landscape stuff, being so close to the Peak District, then you can get out there and.
Okay.
Now, which button do I press for the film? Oh, I think it's just that. Okay, I'll just put it up there. So it's just going to be. That connects.
Actually, would it be better? I'm just thinking. I don't know, because we have missionaries. We're given a little rule book of what we can and can't do. And so I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, it's funny because part of my research last night was, I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
And on some websites, some Mormons seem to say it's okay, and others that it's not really, but they didn't seem to give a reason. So that's why I asked this morning.
Okay.
So it's up to you. If you're not comfortable with it, then I'll turn it off.
Well, I don't mind myself,
right.
But let me ask someone who might know better than I.
Okay.
Then,
yeah.
The next time when we come back, we can give you a for sure answer.
Well, depending on how this conversation goes,
Yeah.
there may not be a next time. That's the problem.
Okay.
Because if we're going to spend maybe an hour or a couple of hours discussing things, this is why I need to be able to kind of look back and take on board maybe what you said, or maybe change what I'm saying in whatever context it is that we're talking. So I really need that kind of decision now.
Well, probably not this time then.
Right. Okay. I'll turn it off. And,
Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's just if we do, then if you can firm up which way you want to go, then that'll be fine. So I'll turn it off. So that's off. Just so you know.
Beautiful camera though. Yeah.
Well, it's all right. It does what I want it to do.
When was it made?
Well, I bought it in 2007. So and it's only an 8 megapixel. So now you've got 20 megapixel cameras and whatever. So I'll just go and get the book as well.
We're in the Peak District, your favorite place to go.
So yeah, I mean it's so close. I can just get in the car and I don't know if have you explored around here? Have you been out, or do you mainly keep to within?
We've gone out there. One time we went to Castleton.
All right.
Kind of look around there. Then we also went to where the dam bombings were.
Yeah. I was out at Derwent yesterday actually.
Really?
Yeah. No, the day before.
Okay.
I was up Bradfield yesterday. So yeah, I mean, it's just nice to be able to just get out and just get some fresh air out there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So just to continue from yesterday, I did look on the internet and looked on that site that you said, and really just had a look at the piece that talks about Joseph Smith and his background. And for me, it was very interesting historically how the situation was in his time. I mean, what's your take on how he was searching before he had these revelations? How he was searching for, spiritual guidance, shall we say? Because from reading that piece about him, it gave the impression that there was lots of different people spouting different religious beliefs, different Christian beliefs, different denominations, and it was very much of a free-for-all. It was almost like, everybody's just trying to convince everybody else of their own religious belief. And so he was trying to find his way through all this to come to some objective position about what to believe. I mean, is that the way you see it, or?
Yeah. Well, to back up a little bit for some background information, God, He has always dealt through prophets on this earth because He can't be in here in person, and so He has one man that He talks to. That man can then go and lead the children on the earth, or the people.
I mean, there's a few things there. If God is the creator of the entire universe and is all powerful, I don't know if that's what you believe. It begs the question as to why he needs to do that, why he needs to pick out certain people, whether it's Jesus or Muhammad or Joseph Smith or whoever, or John the Baptist or whoever, Moses, whoever, and why he can't give this revelation to each one of us individually. I mean, I've never heard an answer or a good answer to that question. And why, if it's, I mean, there's obviously stories from personal revelation, and numerous people have had them, but obviously Joseph Smith's own personal revelation was something that found a lot of gravitas at a particular time in history, and led to what you are today. But I've never heard a good explanation as to why that same revelation can't be given to everybody directly by God, rather than through a third party.
Okay. The way that I see it is, God asks us to have faith. Have faith in Him, have faith in His Son Jesus Christ. And if He were to come out to every single one of us and say, "Hey, look, here I am. Believe this, believe in me," then it'd make it too easy. It'd be like if someone were to, or if God were to appear to you right now and say, "Here I am."
Not really, because I would need some convincing that it is actually a God that is talking to me. It's not some super powerful alien entity that I just simply do not understand. So it's still not going to be easy. There are still certain processes that this God being would need to do to convince me that this being is the creator of the universe and has created everything in it. And even then, it doesn't get me to any position whereby I may even wish to worship him. Because if what he is saying somehow conflicts with what I believe to be good, and there's a lot of things in the Bible that, I mean, you were saying yesterday that the Bible is the perfect word of God. I might be putting words into your mouth, I'm not sure. But to me, there is a lot of bad things in the Bible. There's some good things, there's a lot of bad things. Now, if some being can, for a start, prove to me that he is a God, or it is a God, that being also needs to prove to me that it has a better moral system than I have. And I don't see that in the Bible. As I say, I see a lot of good stuff that is, to me, is pretty normal. It's just kind of normal human empathic behaviour. And I see a lot of bad stuff that really we don't want to do if we can help it.
Well, to answer you said that if he appeared to you, you wouldn't know if he was God. Yeah?
Mm.
Well,
there would need to be some justification,
mm-hmm.
rather than in just asserting that I can appear to do things that you don't understand because I am supposedly God, but I could be some super advanced alien being. So it's no good him just asserting that. He needs to somehow demonstrate that he is the creator of everything that ever happened. And then even if he manages to do that, then is that being still worth worshipping in the way that some say religious people tend to worship their gods, whatever religion you actually are? And again, I can't imagine what that would be. But if God is this all-powerful being, then he would know what would convince me, logically.
Yep. And to go off of that, what we believe is that we lived with God before. God created our spirits.
Right.
And
so that sounds a little bit like Buddhism. That sounds a little bit like reincarnation.
There's a lot of similarities in many different religions.
Right.
But because we lived with him before, we had a perfect knowledge of the plan that God had for us to come to this earth and for what we would have to deal with. But since we're not in God's presence anymore, we call it a veil. Like we can't remember past or before birth. Just like we can't remember what happened when we were 6 months old or 1 year old. We don't remember that time, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we don't remember what happened before this life, but as we study the scriptures and study and pray to God, He gives us this knowledge. He puts it into our thoughts and our hearts, what we can believe. And so because we lived with him before and we had this relationship, because the veil is put over us, we can't remember it. But if God appears to us or speaks to us through the Holy Ghost, the Holy Ghost communicates with our spirit that was with God before. And because we were with God before, we recognize the voice or the thoughts. We recognize his spirit. And then we recognize that is God. That is what he's saying is true. And that's what we as missionaries are trying to do.
Right.
Is we share what we believe. And I know for myself that as we share what we believe, it's truth. And there are a lot of disagreements in this world. But the responsibility of us is just to teach what we know. To teach what we have come to know for ourselves, that the Book of Mormon is true. And I know that Joseph Smith is a prophet that has seen God and seen Jesus Christ.
Right.
And we're here to help you experiment and to find out and to take those steps to knowing for yourself whether he is or not. Because God, if there's a God, if there's only one God, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I know that there is a God, and I know that there is one God that we worship. And as we take these steps of faith, he will speak to us and tell you that this is true. Because I've had that conversation.
As I said yesterday, I work in a school and there are about a 20% Muslim population of school children in that school. And 1 or 2 staff as well are Muslim. And I hear exactly the same thing. they are absolute. They know that their God is the one true God.
Mhm.
And so this is the problem. This is what it always comes back to. It comes back to asserting what you believe to be true, which is what you're doing now. And I'm saying that can never be enough for me. And from my opinion, that should never be enough for anybody. Because for me personally, that devalues us as human beings. And the reason that it devalues us as human beings is because we have a whole other cognitive part of our brain that helps us to disseminate fact from fiction, or potential fact from fiction. And that part of our brain deals with logic, deals with reason, deals with rationality, deals with understanding evidence, and what is good evidence, what is bad evidence, what is no evidence at all. And it's when you close off that part of your mind and only use one part of it, you are not using your whole being. And that I find, without wanting to insult anybody, that I find quite dehumanising. And this is what I feel a lot of religions tend to do to people. Unfortunately, because of the way that people are brought up within quite an enclosed environment, I was talking yesterday about trying not to use the term ghetto in a negative sense, but when you do have populations that are, whether they're 95% Muslim, 95% Christian, 95% Mormon or whatever, then unfortunately that kind of dehumanisation seems to proliferate. And it's only when you create I sound as though I'm talking about wanting to create a kind of utopian multicultural society, and it's not really that. But when you do get different ideas and people from different backgrounds coming together and disseminating those ideas within discussion and within debate, and opening up their minds to other ideas and educating themselves about objective reality, about being able to disseminate between fact and or potential fact and potential fiction. To me, that's what enhances the human experience. And personally, that's what I'm hoping that you get from coming over here. I hope it's a two-way thing.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we can get a lot from maybe understanding your background and where you come from and how you've got to your position in life to become missionaries. But also that from you being over here, you also learn, because one of the other things that I noticed while looking at the internet is that there seems to be something about Mormons, I can't remember the exact term, something about being a part of the world without being in it, which I found a little bit disturbing. It was almost like a little bit like Quakers, not is it Quakers? No.
In the world of, and not of the world? Is that what it was?
Something like that. Maybe you can expand a bit on that to make sure I'm getting the right end of this. What does that actually mean?
Well, in this world,
or is it more of a kind of religious thing? Is it a kind of more like a spiritual kind of thing?
It's a spiritual thing.
Right.
Like, we're in this world, and in this world, there's good and evil. There's the devil, and then there's God. You know, the devil will tempt us to do bad things, and he'll, go drinking, smoking, like, we don't believe in that because it gets addictive.
Yeah.
And so, the reason we don't do that is because God has given us our agency to choose, right from wrong. And when we're under the influence or something, it distorts our judgment.
Oh, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a problem.
So, being in the world means we have no choice. Well, we chose to come to this earth,
right.
But we're here now, and so it's part of the plan. And so we're in the world because it's part of the plan. But of the world means following God and following His.
Yeah, I think I understand. I think I understand where you're coming from. again, just to use an analogy with Muslims, they say exactly the same thing. I do know Muslims that do drink and do smoke, but certainly a lot of them don't, or they shouldn't, etc. And the argument always seems to be this false dichotomy of that if you drink, then you are, and because it is addictive, which we know it's addictive, then you are necessarily going to either make bad decisions, or you're going to drink to excess, or whatever. And that is true, there's no doubt about that, but it's not necessarily true. There are plenty of people who do drink, and drink small amounts, and drink simply just as a form of relaxation. You could call it medicinal yoga. A glass of wine after a meal. You don't have to do what you see on the streets of Sheffield on a Friday, Saturday night, where they're rolling around in the gutter. You know, there's. I'm not. Well, when I was younger, I did not really to that extent, but. Again, I drink, but I drink not to excess. And for me, I don't need a God to be able to tell me to, not necessarily to tell me to do that, but to impose that. I do it because, or I don't do it. I don't drink, or if I do go out to drink, it's in moderation. I don't drink because I have a problem with drinking. I drink because, one, at the moment I can't really afford it. Two, there's a few drinks I like the taste of, but generally, it's something I can do without. And if I do drink to be social, I usually have an alcoholic drink and then I have a soft drink, or maybe a couple of soft drinks, and then maybe another alcoholic drink, and maybe after 2 or 3, so I'm just a little bit relaxed, and then that's it, and that's enough for me. I don't feel the need, and I don't feel the peer pressure, because that's quite often what it is, to be able to go out and get absolutely blotted. So again, it's this idea that because alcohol is seen as a bad thing, and it can be a bad thing, that necessarily you should stop doing it. You can say that about lots of things, about driving a car. You know, no matter how, even if we're sober, we can make a mistake, we can do something wrong, we can take our eyes off the road, and we can end up causing a major accident that kills lots of people, without us being addicted to anything. So we can still make bad decisions with or without alcohol.
Well, the point we're trying to get at with there's no alcohol, no tea, coffee, tobacco, drugs, is that we know that there's a supreme being that we call God. And we know that he loves us.
Sorry, what's the thing with tea and coffee?
I'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah, go on.
So we know that there's this God, and he loves us. And we know that his plan is for us to live with him again. And so because we have that love for him, if you love someone, you're willing to do something for them. You're willing to do a lot more. And so God, he's given us these commandments for our benefit. Like, he gives us the commandment not to drink because some people drink a little bit and then they're addicted and they're drunk every weekend. Some people can control it better than others. But he says no because it has potential to go bad. And it's addictive. And we say, okay, we're not going to drink at all because we love you. Because we know that you know better than us. Because he created everything.
So yeah, just expand on the tea and coffee thing.
The tea and coffee are the same as alcohol, and tea, coffee, alcohol. They can all get addictive, and God has told us that we shouldn't have these things. Even though alcohol and tobacco and tea, they all have medicinal purposes. Like tobacco, you can put it on bruises, and it'll heal your bruises a lot quicker.
Right.
But he has told us that they are not for our consumption.
Right. And what for the only reason that they are addictive, is that the only reason?
That there is a lot to do with addiction, because some people, they wake up in the morning and they think, I have to have my cup of coffee, or I have to have this cup of tea, and they can't function unless they have it. So there is a lot to do with the addiction, but I also see it as...
but maybe people are addicted to many other things as well.
Yeah, there is a lot of other things.
Like religion.
Could be. I have friends who are addicted to video games.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could be addicted to, but
Yeah.
with the tea, with the coffee, alcohol, drugs, all of that, it is also a lot to do with our health, to
Yeah.
keep us healthy in life, because we also believe that, you know, our body is a temple. You know, it's like our body is sacred.
Right.
That God gave us our bodies, and He created our bodies for us, and He wants us to be able to stay healthy, so that way we can be able to make better decisions.
Yeah.
Because if someone's unhealthy, if they're, if they're not healthy, if they're not keeping themselves healthy, then they're not likely to keep making good decisions. I guess you could kind of say it that way.
Yeah, but health is a very wide spectrum, isn't it? It depends on the food that you eat.
Yeah.
More than anything else, really, and how much exercise you get, and your mental health. Is your mental health at its best by following a very narrow doctrine of religious belief, or could your mental health become better by expanding your horizons and taking on board different information from different sources, which then enables you to possibly make better decisions in different environments that you might find yourself in. Maybe that's part of, if you believe in a God, God's plan as well. So this is the problem with fixating on whether it's a 2,000-year-old set of scriptures, whether it's the Quran from the, when was it, 800 AD, or somewhere around there, or whether it's this from 200 years ago. It's of its time and was probably appropriate at its time in history. But as human beings, and we learn more as time goes on, and there's an old saying that we stand on the shoulders of giants. We look at knowledge from the past, and then we build on that knowledge to find out how correct it was, whether it's applicable today, in what way is it applicable today, if it is at all, maybe it isn't. What is applicable today then, if it's not? How do we make those decisions? How do we live together, bearing in mind that there are all these different positions to take? Maybe that is actually God's plan. Maybe something like that is God's plan, if you believe in God.
I really like it. You have a vast knowledge of a lot of things. You look at different angles.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose I should have said this in the beginning. I am an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I didn't say that at the beginning is because I know from having Facebook friends in America that saying that you're an atheist to American is just the worst thing you could almost ever do. So I didn't really want to kind of drop that straight on. I think I said yesterday I wasn't really interested in religion because of all the problems it causes in the world or whatever. But is that an accurate, is that your understanding of how Americans tend to perceive atheists if somebody comes out as an atheist? Is that,
Well, my personal experience is I grew up in Wyoming, which is an 8-hour drive from Salt Lake City. And in my level, we call it grades or numbers in high school, years.
Yeah.
So in my year of school, there were only 3 Mormons, 3 of my church members. And in the whole high school, it was other Christians, atheists, a lot of different things.
Right.
And so, being one of 3 people, I have a lot of friends of different religions, different faiths.
Yeah,
different.
So that's good.
And I even have a brother who claims to be atheist.
Right.
And so, him and I have had some philosophical discussions a lot.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot. We've just, we've had some really good discussions that have, strengthened our relationship.
Right.
And because he's my brother, he's an atheist, because he's atheist, that doesn't affect the love I have for him because he's my brother.
Yeah, good.
And so, he could do whatever he wanted, and the only thing that would make me sad is if he died, I love him and I don't want to lose him.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not saying I know a lot about being atheist or a lot about other churches, But I've grown up in an atmosphere where it isn't that utopia.
Right. Yeah. That's good because it's just it's just me trying to see
Mm-hmm.
the reality of, and I suppose each individual's story is personal to them. Even in a closed environment, there can be different. You know, you still are going to meet maybe slightly different people. But looking at it on a larger perspective, it seems that narrow religious thinking seems to reduce as people come together in, shall we say, in the big cities.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever there is a large city, whether it's New York, whether it's London, whether it's Los Angeles or wherever, you do get lots of different religions obviously going there, and they all have to kind of interact, and they all have to kind of get on with each other. And that I think leads to a kind of moderation of attitude, shall we say. So it's really good to see that that's the case, because you know I did look at the demographics of Utah, and it does seem to be 85% Mormon or something. So it's just, you know, in this country we are supposedly around about 60% Christian. So for the whole of the UK, it's much less. In fact, I would actually say it's less than that, because being an atheist, I look at Richard Dawkins' website. I'm sure you've heard of Richard Dawkins. And they did a poll that asked some questions of Christians. Do you believe that Jesus was the Son of God? Do you believe that he was resurrected after 3 days? Do you believe that he was born of a virgin? And even people who call themselves Christians were saying no to these questions. And so it begs the question, then how can you even call yourself a Christian if there aren't certain fundamentals that you believe in? To be you know, I could call myself a football player. You know, and if somebody says to me, so what do you do? Oh, what do you like doing, Andrew? And I could say, well, I like playing football. Oh, you're a football player then? Well, yeah, I'm a football player. So when do you play football? Well, once every 10 years or so, you know. Well, no, it doesn't make me a football player, does it? There has to be certain fundamentals that you believe in to call yourself whatever it is you want to call yourself. So obviously you're Mormons, so that's your book. If you didn't follow that, you wouldn't be Mormons, correct? Or if you didn't believe in that, if you didn't believe or follow Joseph Smith's teachings, then you wouldn't be Mormons.
Mm-hmm. If you, like with anything, if you don't fully agree with something, you have your doubts.
Yeah.
You can, like, I have my doubts of certain things.
Yeah.
But, you know, I still believe.
There has to be certain fundamentals which you have to follow. I'm not saying that you probably believe absolutely everything in there, or maybe that, as I said yesterday, there are obviously contradictions in the Bible, because the Bible is different books put together, written by different people at different times. So they would have had different perspectives on what was happening at that time. And as I say, it was written quite a few years later, and also it was at third hand in some respects. So obviously, it's not the unchanging, unfaltered Word of God, that there is discrepancy there. And maybe there is in here as well, I don't know. But as long as you're prepared to follow Joseph Smith and to teach his teachings, or what you feel are his teachings, then obviously you can, you know, you're entitled to call yourself a Mormon. So yeah, just like I'm an atheist. So I get this impression sometimes that religious people think that atheists say that they're or declare that there is no God, or that they know there is no God. Is that what you think? Is that what you believe? Or
I'd have to say, from what I've heard, being atheist is kind of what you said, believing that there is no God.
Yeah, it's more a belief than a knowledge. So it's more a case of I don't have enough evidence there for me personally to believe in any supernatural being outside of. I think I said yesterday, you know, I work in a school, and I work in science. So obviously I have a materialist worldview, a science-based worldview. that really comes from the Enlightenment. So I need more than just appealing to kind of supernatural forces or appealing to somebody who claims to have had a revelation, because there are many revelations throughout history, and they're all a little bit different. There are some similarities quite often. So it's for me, I don't see the need for any God. I don't believe that morals are God-given. You would disagree. You would claim, I would suggest, that morals have to come from some objective being like a God. I mean, I don't know where you stand on that.
Well, morals are personal. Yes, we have commandments from God to guide us morally in a path that.
Sorry. Can I stop you, because a commandment is a commandment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a guide. So there was I just had to stop you because there was a problem with the way you were going. A commandment is, this is how it is. There can be no swerving from that.
Mm-hmm.
A commandment, the dictionary definition is very, very solid. This is fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
Not unless X, Y, Z. There is no unless X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt have no other God before me.
Well, to go along what you're saying, I could not believe in what we are saying and not kill because I think it's wrong, or I could be where I am now and think of it as a commandment and say that God told us not to kill. So these two people, they don't kill anybody, but whether he just thinks it's bad, I think it's bad. Our reasoning's different, but we agree on the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we're getting at,
Yeah.
A lot of people in different areas, they have different beliefs. They may do the same thing,
Yeah.
but one may believe it's a commandment from God, and commandment's just something that God has told us to do or don't do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the biggest issue is, one, if he's there or not. I know he's there. And no matter what anybody tells me, that's not going to change my reasoning because he's answered my prayers. He's told me that he's there and that he loves me. And we as missionaries are helping people. He's never going to manifest himself to you in any way without you asking him. People.
But how do you know that? And why is that the case?
Because
surely if his message is so important, and you would say it is, absolutely vital that, otherwise you wouldn't be missionary, absolutely vital that we get his message out. When he is all powerful, and he could give me that message directly, so that it's not misinterpreted by humans that he created, whether he created them faulty or not, because he's all powerful, so he could put them right if he did create them faulty, or if you believe in the Adam and Eve story when Adam ate the apple of knowledge and therefore that was a fall, etc., etc. So regardless of that, if his message is so important and he needs to get it out there for the betterment of all of mankind, if he can contact one person and give them a revelation, he can contact everybody on the planet and give them exactly the same revelation, whether they believe him or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could.
Yeah, I kind of see it as just with my dad. If I wanted to borrow his car, but I never asked him to borrow it, and he knew that I wanted to borrow it, he wouldn't give me the keys so I could borrow his car unless I asked him. And sometimes, first I would have to ask him before he would give it to me. And surely, if it depends on the father-son relationship. Mm-hmm.
Maybe some sons are quite timid, and maybe they feel that they can't ask for it, and
true.
Therefore the father needs to know and understand their child better, so that the father then knows when to go to the son and say, hey son, do you fancy learning how to drive? Here's the keys to my car.
Okay. That is
You know,
true.
this is the problem.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
are creating a set of beings that for whatever reason have fallen, and so therefore they have free will, they have the ability to take on board knowledge, they have the ability to move away from God. And they move away from God in different ways, whether it's following the Muslim faith, following no faith, being a Jew or Hindu or whatever. Then God surely will know what is the right message to bring them back to the one true path, if there is a one true path. Or maybe God has got it exactly as he wants it, whereby there is no one true path. The one true path for you is your path.
Yeah.
For me is my path. For Hindus is their path. For Jews is their path, etc.
Yeah. Like I have a cousin who used to be Mormon, but it wasn't really working out for her, and she ended up joining the Baptist faith, and that's helping her a lot more in her life. And you know, maybe that's what she needs. Maybe God knows that that's what she needs in her life at the moment is to be a Baptist, and then maybe, you know, depending on what he knows she needs, she'll be able to return to him. However that course
Precisely.
may be.
So maybe Muslims are all going to end up in heaven. Maybe Mormons are going to end up in heaven. Maybe other Christians are going to end up in heaven. Jews will end up in heaven. Hindus will end up in heaven. And maybe if there is a heaven, maybe even atheists will end up there. And then we can have this discussion then again. So do you know? So do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So logically following on from that, what seems to be important, more important than following, say, one supposedly true path, is that people find their own way, and that while we are in the here and now, regardless of what comes after or what was before, that we make the best of what we have now on this finite planet, to be able for us to live out our own life in as peaceful a way as what we can. And then if there is a God there, then surely he's going to appreciate that, whether you worship him or not. And say, this is my creation, you've looked after it the best that you can, because you understand what actually needs to happen for people to live at peace, not only amongst themselves, but in relationship to the environment or whatever. Now, obviously at the moment, there's lots of wars going on, there's environmental destruction, etc., etc., etc. It seems to me that a lot of these wars do come from these different religious beliefs. You know, we've had it in Europe. We've had it for hundreds of years, thousands of years, really. And it seems to be, whether it's a religious ideology, the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, whatever, or a political ideology, Nazism, communism. They're all ideologies. You know, religion has God at its top focus. Political ideologies just have an ideology really at its helm. And they all seem to be trying to dominate each other. Christians seem to want to dominate everybody else in America. Muslims seem to dominate everybody else in the Middle East. Jews in Israel, Hindus in India. Religion seems to be, whether you believe in one true path and whether you know that there is a God or not, having that evangelical mindset seems to cause a lot of problems. I know that you as Mormons, I don't know a lot about Mormons, but you know, you seem to be quite peaceful, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of issues in America regarding Mormonism. There doesn't seem to be any killings or any shootings or whatever, or you don't seem to be the Westboro Baptist Church mob or anything like that. Or maybe you are, but you're just maybe not as forceful as what they are. Maybe you just don't get out there with your placards and, you know, God hates fags or whatever. Now, obviously, we could get on to homosexuality here. So obviously, this would be something that you would probably have a problem with, but maybe you wouldn't shout about it. Am I true on that?
Yeah. Let me answer that question. Our church believes that the family is the central unit to God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
Without the family, you can't have children. You can't. We're part of God's family. And so it seems right that we have a family here on earth. And so in our system, the family is what it's centered around. It strengthens families. It strengthens them as they worship God, as they try and build each other's relationships and help each other out. The gospel of Jesus Christ helps them. And everybody in this world has their own trials. Some people struggle with alcohol. Some people struggle with, being attracted to the same sex. Everybody has their own struggle. But being attracted to the same sex doesn't mean that you should do it in our beliefs, because two men can't have a child and two women can't have a child.
Yeah.
And so it goes against our unit as a family. Because a family is a man and a woman that have kids who...
It's there for procreation. Yeah, and I understand that. And from a purely practical level, there is nothing to disagree with that. I know in my own personal experience that gay people do have families and can have families. And that those families are very stable, they are very meaningful to the people involved. The children in those families, because I work in a school, so there are a number of gay parents who have children in that school. Some of their own, some they've adopted. And the children are doing well, the children are well loved. They're not perfect, but what kids are, they'll do daft things and they'll say daft things and whatever. But they are, to all intents and purposes, just like any other kids from any other families. And so, yes, they can't procreate. But then again, maybe that is their special place in this creation, if you believe in God, in the respect that when there are children who, for whatever reason, don't have parents, because the parents get killed in some car accident or whatever, there is no other family, then having a couple, whatever their sexuality, it may be a straight couple, it may be a gay couple, might be the best thing to ever happen to that child. In fact, it may actually be, they may end up in a better position than with the family that they had previously, who maybe for whatever reason were abusive to that child or whatever. And so you could have a situation where a child who is with a certain family and the child is abused for whatever reason, whether whether the family, say, is maybe a Catholic and religious, and the parents send that child to be a choir boy in a choir, and that child then gets abused by a Catholic priest. So I'm just making a scenario here.
No,
but then that child's parents get killed in a car accident, so that child is then moved to another family, who may be gay or may not be, but they maybe or maybe not are religious, and send the child to a different church where the child doesn't get abused. And because the child is then not getting abused, that child, you can see demonstrably, becomes a more well-balanced, nice, likeable child. So this is the problem with this kind of, without wanting to insult anybody, this kind of very narrow thinking, that it doesn't leave you with any real good semblance of dealing with real world issues as they actually are. You're looking for a certain ideal which may be your ideal, maybe Joseph Smith's ideal, but it's not and can never be the ideal for everybody else on the planet. Because we are all, if you believe in God, which I don't, different in God's image, shall we say, to use a term that you might understand. And whether he's right to create us like that or not is not for me to say. But the fact of the matter is that is the world that we are dealing with. We are dealing with lots of different people who come from different environments, social, cultural, political, environmental environments. And we need to develop a system that takes that into account by understanding that the best that we can. And then adopting attitudes and policies that take into account all those different positions to enable everybody to live in a peaceful way. And I don't see that narrow, not just you, Muslims and other Christians and whatever, that narrow mindset helping in that. I see it hindering in a big way worldwide. And, you know, it breaks my heart to see that happening. And it breaks my heart because it breaks my heart. Yeah. Circular reasoning there, but I don't need God. I don't need to defer to God for me to know that it breaks my heart to see all those problems. And that usually when people do step out of religion, I know in America there's this big thing about communists weren't religious, and then communists caused a lot of problems in Russia, etc., etc. I think the problem then was the Russian Orthodox Church, religion in Russia at the time of when the communists took over, was simply seen as a very powerful alternative ideology to the ideology that the communists wanted to impose, and therefore this alternative power base had to be destroyed. But it wouldn't have mattered what that power base was, whether it was Nazism, whether it was Shintoism, or whatever. It had to go for this kind of communist utopia to be implemented. But again, it's this narrow, dogmatic way of thinking that caused the problems. And slowly but surely, we do seem to be learning. We do seem to be getting somewhere, and it's not perfect. And as I say, you go into Sheffield on a Saturday night, and there are still people rolling around drunk and causing problems, and police having to deal with them and whatever. But that's usually down to low self-esteem, a lack of education, a lack of opportunities in life, in society, etc. People finding their own way. You know, people having the confidence to find their own way. People not being brought up to develop their own roots in life, but people being brought up usually in the similar way that the parents were to follow a particular course of action, and then therefore when they do get out into the real world and they don't see that everybody's following that same action, that can cause problems. And certainly in this country, that has, I think, caused quite a lot of problems, because it is a very multicultural country where there's lots of people coming together from different backgrounds, and then you get hotspots in certain areas, in Luton in London, where there's lots of Muslims causing problems. We had the Bradford riots 20 odd years ago, but these usually come from people not feeling that they are wanted or a part of something bigger than themselves. Religion tends to fill that gap in America. In the UK, it doesn't so much, because we have more of a state-controlled society, where the state is more involved in people's lives, in providing a free NHS, free schooling, and lots of benefits, etc. And that can sometimes be a negative thing, but as long as you have lots and lots of jobs to pay for that, and lots of taxation to be able to do that, then that tends to help people out in a big way. So they don't need to find this narrow route through their life. They have a basic safety net to be able for them to follow whatever route they decide to follow for themselves, taking on board the information that is out there in society for them to be able to go out and disseminate for themselves. Anyway, I'm waffling on. Go on. No, sorry.
Okay,
Carry
very
on.
good. Well, what you were saying, I completely agree with a lot of what you were saying. Anything that will better someone's life or contribute to their life for the better is good. This world is not perfect, and it's far from perfect, and it'll never be perfect. But if a child, for example, has a better life with a gay couple, by all means, put that child in the orphanage or in the abusive family, in that relationship, put them in that environment where everybody loves each other. It will always be better for that child to be in a loving relationship rather than where they're getting hurt.
Yeah.
And so we support, doing whatever we can to improve our lives.
But part of getting hurt, to me, is not just physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It could be mental or emotional abuse.
Exactly.
Which could be telling a child that if you don't believe what I believe, you're going to hell.
And there are a lot of people who say that.
So Mormons, you don't believe in hell as Mormons then?
We believe that there's a hell.
Right.
But, we have our agency. I wasn't told that you have to believe this. I was told, this is what we grew up with. This is what our church believes, and I went to church every Sunday. But they told me point blank, eventually you will have to find out for yourself whether this is true or not.
Right.
They told me, this is an option you can take, but, like my brother, he chose to take a different path.
Right.
My parents still love him the same as much as me.
Right.
But I know this is true. I know that God spoke to me and told me that this is His gospel. And the gospel is here on the earth just to better people's lives. Just because I know of the blessings that come from the gospel. They help me in ways that I don't even understand. And I don't understand them
Well, how, sorry, to put in again, how can you make a judgment if you don't understand them, whether they are the best thing for you? How can you make that judgment?
It comes from a strong relationship with God. As we pray, let me get there.
Go on.
As we pray to God, we develop that relationship and we recognize when He's speaking to us. And so there's me, and then there's this person I know nothing about that may have cut me off on the road and I was mad or something. And God, He's all-knowing. He knows everything. And God knows what that person is going through or anything, God knows all. And the better my relationship is with Him, as I pray to Him and as I develop that relationship, because He knows everything, He can tell me, maybe that guy had a bad day at work and he just wants to get home to his family. He can speak to me through my thoughts and my feelings and give me that greater understanding that I need to understand that person who I know nothing about.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, yeah, I can understand that 100%. But I can do exactly the same thing without having to defer to a God, because I have an understanding as a human being that we are social creatures. I'm a scientist, so I have a material worldview. So I believe in evolution. So I believe that we are evolved beings. We are evolved. We do have common ancestors with the entire life on this planet. And the evidence for that is absolutely overwhelming. I would doubt that you believe that as Mormons.
Well, here's my stance on it. I don't know how backed up it is in the church, but this is my personal view. I'm not saying evolution is correct or not.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
Right.
I don't know how we got here. I know of this plan that I've been taught, and I know that it's true. I didn't witness it for myself.
Right.
And the science is there to form a hypothesis of what could have happened, you know. And God, He's not confusing. He's not going to go against the laws, because He created the laws of nature. He created the laws of the universe.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next point. That if you accept that, if you believe in a God, you accept that He created the laws of the universe, then one of those laws could be evolution.
It could be.
And therefore we have evolved from every life form on the planet to be what we are today. If you therefore, just to follow on from my point, if you therefore accept that, then we can see that there is a relationship, therefore, with every other life form on the planet. I'm not saying a relationship such as a father and a son or anything like that, but there is a connection there. And therefore we can see that other beings that are more like us, closer to us in evolutionary terms, have similar ways of behaviour that we have. Or in other words, the vast majority of the other apes, the other great apes, our closest ancestors, are social creatures. There's only the orangutans that are really quite solitary. They are all social creatures. They live in groups. They have their own codes of morality, for want of a better term. So you can understand that there needs to be a sense of empathy involved in understanding somebody else's position and what the situation that they may very well be in. So therefore, it's therefore natural for us to have that same kind of empathy. For, as you say, somebody who's maybe having a bad day and has just cut you up, and you just let it go. You think, well, you know, he's a bit of an idiot, but so what? You know, I'm chilled out, and you know, on your way, guy. So yeah, there's not a problem, but and of course you can believe God within that system if you want to, but it doesn't require a God for that to actually happen. And so therefore you can come to that conclusion without the need for a God, for any kind of God. And of course what religion does on the counter, on the negative side, is that it says, well actually, now that we've got your attention, because there is this one almighty being that's created everything, and is this wonderful being that wants peace and wants this and wants that and the other. But actually what he also said is, he also said this, this and this and this, which is maybe not quite so nice. And therefore then you have a conflict. So you can have a conflict whereby even if people are very good gay people, and they form decent relationships, and they are very loving and very caring, and yet clearly in the Bible it condemns homosexuality on a couple of occasions. It says man shall not lie with another man. If he does so, I can't remember the exact words, he shall be put to death. And then afterwards it says something about don't eat shellfish and don't wear mixed fibres or something.
Yeah.
So it's always a case of, well, why cherry pick that one and then forget about that one and forget about that one? And it doesn't make any sense. And that is the problem with deferring to some authority from on high, because it creates a system whereby you don't have to think these things through for yourself, because you've got a big book of multiple choice that you can pick and choose from. And some people will pick the bad bits to justify their own position. And you see that a lot in Islam. And also in America with the Westboro Baptist Church lot and other really strong evangelicals down in the Bible Belt. So again, I just think it's while I wouldn't really follow what Christopher Hitchens said in his book, God is Not Great, Why Religion Poisons Everything, I wouldn't quite go that far. I think on the whole for me, religion is more of a negative than a positive. It had its usefulness at a particular time in history where, as I think I mentioned yesterday, it seemed to have a positive effect on bringing small disparate tribes together. Islam did the same in that part of the world. There was a lot of tribal warfare, and Muhammad seemed to have a unifying influence at that time, despite various atrocities that, well, we look at today as being atrocities, and they were atrocities, but back then would have been pretty much normal behaviour, just what tribes did to each other. So there was still various fighting going on, but generally speaking, things seemed to be a lot more peaceful when Muhammad was around than what there had been. And then, of course, when you lose that major figure in a particular context, and you can bring that closer today with somebody like Gandhi in India, somebody like Nelson Mandela in South Africa. When you lose that unifying figure, there is a lot of doubt of what's going to happen afterwards, because people all focus on that figure, be it a God, be it Jesus, be it Joseph Smith, be it Nelson Mandela, be it Gandhi, to give them some kind of moral guidance in their life. Whereas what I'm saying as a secular humanist is, it's down to all of us together as a group of people to make the decisions that's better for everybody concerned and allows everybody their own path through life.
Can I
Yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah,
hey, that's all right.
That's why you're looking at the clock.
Well, I was just curious.
Yeah.
The time's going quickly.
Yeah, so go on.
Something that I've had to come to know for myself is to get rid of titles. You know, a lot of people, you know, they say they're Christian, but they do this.
Yeah.
A lot of people say they're Muslim, but they do this. A lot of people say that they're good people, but they do this. You know, a lot of times people put a title on their head and say they're something, but I could say I'm Mormon, and Mormons don't believe in murder, but if I go kill somebody, that's on my head. That's not on the title of Mormon or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so there's a lot of disagreement and there's a lot of assumptions made because people claim to be one thing but do another.
Yeah.
And in this life, you know, it's all about becoming the better person. And for some people, it's one path, but for some people it's another. You know, and I can say for myself that I know that the message we share can help all people. If they will but experiment on what we are inviting them to do. Because I'm going to give an analogy, but in the context of what I'm trying to say, is, you know, our message is, I put it really high on the importance level because of the help I've received from it. And with this religion, with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and their teachings, there's a lot of disagreements because of one reason or another. But I find myself, as I experiment upon the teachings in the gospel of Jesus Christ, that I find peace in my life, that I find myself more happy. And that's why I'm on my mission, is to share that with people. But the comparison being, you know, you can go throughout life and be completely happy. Completely happy and be atheist, be Catholic, be Mormon, be Muslim, be Hindu. You know, you can go throughout your life in any aspect of anything and be happy. You know, that's great. You know, if someone can go through life and be happy, more power to them. I'll support them. But the comparison I wanted to say was, you know, for example, if you wanted to wash a window on the second floor or third floor, it's going to be a lot easier to climb the ladder. A ladder rather than to try and hang out the window and wash it.
Yeah.
And so both results end up with the window being washed or you being happy in this life.
Yeah.
You know, you can be happy in one thing or you can be happy in another thing, but the same conclusion is that you're happy.
Yeah.
But religion, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you know, it makes connections with those, what you were saying earlier is those misconnections, or like I was saying, that spirit that we had before this life, which we have now, but that veil is placed over our head.
Mm.
You know, the gospel of Jesus Christ can only help us. I know that.
Mm.
You know, if we follow the teachings, you're just climbing the ladder, so to say, of happiness.
Mm.
You know, if you never taste cherry pie, you never know if you're going to like it or not.
Yeah.
If you never experiment and try the cherry pie, it's indifferent to you about cherry pie because you've never had it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so we as missionaries are here to invite people to try the cherry pie, to experiment upon what we are saying, because I know for myself it'll help you. You know, you claim this is it, and you know, you're true. You've said a lot of truth that I agree with. You know, helping people out in any way possible, you know, children, you know, being happy in this life. You hit so many points that I agree with. You know, I had a hard time disagreeing with with a lot of it.
I would like to hear that.
Because we are similar with a lot of animals or a lot of creatures in this life. And you know, who's to say that God didn't use evolution to put us here? So evolution, you know, in my aspect, could be true. I don't know for myself. But I do know that the gospel of Jesus Christ can help you in your life. And what it all is based off of is if Joseph Smith, you know, he's a prophet. Just like in the Bible, they claim to be prophets. But you'll never know if Joseph Smith really was a prophet or really did see God unless you experiment upon what we say and read the Book of Mormon. And pray about it.
Which is just what I was about to say. I mean, although I haven't studied the Bible in depth, you know, just and I may have been guilty in cherry picking certain things out of the Bible to fit my own kind of position. I don't think so, because I'm more than happy to accept that there are some very, very good things in the Bible, as well as some bad things. And I'm sure the same is this. And when I've got more time, I shall have a read through, because in the Bible you tend to know what kind of chapters you to go to kind of look for any moral thing that maybe wanting to discuss. In this, I don't. It's at the moment it's a completely closed book. So you know, obviously, I will have a look at this. I'll carry on having a look at that website, and I'll have a look at this. But it will be because my worldview is one of a skeptic. It's going to be through skepticism. It comes from a position of knowing and understanding what science, technology, and material worldview, based on logic, reason, and rationality, knowing and understanding what those can give you in life and what they have given us. I will be looking at it from that kind of perspective, because I don't see this being able to give me anything that I feel I need in life than what I've already got. I can do without cherry pie. I have tasted cherry pie. I don't particularly like. I'm an apple and blackberry is my favourite thing. So yeah, I'm not keen on cherry pie. So for me, my atheism is kind of apple and blackberry. So you know, I can have a good look at it and look at it skeptically.
Do you mind if we read the introduction to it right now?
No, that's fine if you want to. And
it's just right in the first few pages, right there.
Introduction, yeah.
Do you mind if we each read a paragraph and we read it, and then we can explain?
Right, yeah, that's fine.
I'll read the first paragraph, and then we can just go around in a circle.
Okay, yeah.
It says, "The Book of Mormon is a volume of Holy Scripture comparable to the Bible. It is a record of God's dealings with the ancient inhabitants of the Americas, and contains, as does the Bible, the fullness of the everlasting gospel.
The book was written by many ancient prophets by the spirit of prophecy and revelation. Their words, written on gold plates, were quoted and abridged by a prophet historian named Mormon. The record gives an account of two great civilizations. One came from Jerusalem in 600 BC, and afterwards separated into two nations, known as the Nephites and the Lamanites. The other came much earlier, when the Lord confounded the tongues at the Tower of Babel. This group is known as the Jaredites. After thousands of years, all were destroyed except the Lamanites, and they are the principal ancestors of the American Indians.
The crowning event recorded in the Book of Mormon is the personal ministry of the Lord Jesus Christ through the Nephites soon after his resurrection. It puts forth the doctrines of the gospel, outlines the plan of salvation, and tells men what they must do to gain peace in this life and eternal salvation in the life to come.
Alright. Just to explain a little bit, this is a history book.
Right.
Like it said, it's the God's dealings with the ancient inhabitants. These men, ordinary men, were told by God to write down their history, like a journal.
Right.
To write down what happened to them, and today I didn't put on my seatbelt, but I got in an accident and I was thrown through the windshield. Just like a chronological order of events that happened.
Mm.
And so as we look into it and as we read it,
I suppose, just to kind of stop the thing there straight away into the introduction. Where did Joseph Smith get? Well, you would claim it's from God.
Mm-hmm.
But as somebody who doesn't believe in God, then I still have to ask the question: where did Joseph Smith get this idea that one came from Jerusalem in 600 BC and afterwards separated into two nations known as the Nephites and the Lamanites?
Mm-hmm.
How can that information be independently verified? That's always, it always has to come back to that question.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and this is what I say about something that important to the history of America should be able to be revealed to more than one person. It should be something that everybody can find for themselves, because if that history is correct, it's vitally important for what's left of the indigenous population of the Americas, what we've termed, what was over here, termed as the Red Indians, or American Indians, it says here. It's very important to their history, and what did those people actually say about it, the American Indians? Do they agree with Joseph Smith?
Well,
these people lived there for many thousands of years.
Well, with anybody, this could happen to anybody on the earth, or anyone in any situation. The power of the writing is great. To be able to write your language down is very important. Like as we can see over here, I have a slim knowledge of the history over here, but before, a long time ago, there's a lot of technology, a lot of everything, but then the Dark Ages is where a lot of it was lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Dark Ages. Really, you're talking from maybe from when the Romans left.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about maybe, I'm probably going to get my dates wrong, but if we talk around 400-500 AD, so really from maybe 500-600 AD up to William the Conqueror, which is 1066. Those are really classed as the Dark Ages. We do have information about what happened then, but there is no real solid national archive of a body of information that kind of tells us what happens. Not a lot was written down, etc. It was only as we had, shall we say, more advanced people coming over, first with the Normans, then with the Vikings and whatever. So it was like the Romans who left, the Romans who provided a lot of what we understand today as civilized technology and behaviour. When they left, it kind of all went back to being a bit more tribal again, and people just living hand to mouth, day to day kind of thing.
And that's exactly kind of what happened here.
Yeah.
In here is the people, the Nephites, they obeyed God and what He told them to do. and they had that strong relationship with him. The Lamanites, on the other hand, did not. They denied the power of God. They denied what he could do. And so God told them to keep a journal, so to say, and that's what we read as the Book of Mormon, is their journal,
Right.
in a way. And so as we, let me organize my thoughts. Regarding the Native Americans today, in here, it was written down, and they stayed close. But all were destroyed but the Lamanites, and they were the principal ancestors of the American Indians. The Lamanites didn't keep those journals, didn't keep records because they didn't think it was important. But the Nephites did. They kept the records. And the power of writing keeps your language.
Right. So if all the Nephites, sorry, after the time will be destroyed. Sorry, just because I've lost myself here now. And afterwards separated two nations known as the Nephites and the Lamanites. The other came much earlier when the Lord confounded the tongues of the town of Babel. This group is known as. The other came much earlier when the Lord confounded the tongues. That sentence there, I don't understand. So if you can explain that sentence, the other came much earlier when the Lord confounded the tongues at the Tower of Babel.
In the Bible, there is a Tower of Babel,
Right.
in early Genesis, where before the Tower of Babel, everyone on earth spoke the same language.
Right.
But because of some things that they did, they tried to build this tower to see God or something. I don't know the exacts. But God confounded the languages and created all these different languages. And so, in a portion of in here is at that time when God made different languages, so to say, on the earth. There's this group of people that God led out of that land and put in the Americas, and then they prospered. Yeah. So that in a portion of these words is a record of that people who lived there, but who eventually they all died.
Right.
And the second group.
But so the point is, these words that were written down, these scriptures, where can I go and see these scriptures?
They're in here.
Yeah, but where independently can I go and see that? I mean, I can see the Dead Sea Scrolls. I can see actual real bits of what you might call the original Bible, or a bit of the original Bible for myself, and see that it's a real ancient manuscript. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking to see the original ancient manuscript so that I can verify it for myself. And then that will be a big step for me saying, actually, there is something here. It might still not lead me to believe in God, but it's just a minute. So there is something that is so important to US history and religion per se in America that this is going to be real strong, earth-shattering news. To be able to see these scriptures for myself, even though I can't understand them because they're in maybe a different language that needs interpretation, like the Bible, like it's in Arabic or Aramaic or whatever. This is brilliant. So, is there somewhere I can go to see these, or?
And that's the thing. That's when Joseph Smith received these plates. They were made out of gold, and they were very precious and valuable for a lot of people. You could get thousands of dollars back then, which was millions.
So we're talking about going back to. So what's the time period? I need to get a time period. So after thousands of years, all were destroyed except the Lamanites. So the Nephites were destroyed. When were the Nephites destroyed? Do we have a time scale for when they were extinct?
In the book, in the bottom corners, it's got kind of an estimated time throughout the book. Like in this part, it says 72 BC. It says that it started about 600 BC.
Right.
And at the very end, the very last book, it says at about 421 AD. So it was saying that the Nephites were destroyed, completely gone at about right around 421 AD.
Right, right.
So
Okay. Right.
And so the reason I stopped and tried to explain a little bit more about these paragraphs is there's a lot of miscommunication with the Book of Mormon.
Mm.
A lot of people think, I'll read the Book of Mormon and they'll tell me that everything's true.
Mm.
You know, when in reality you read it and it's a journal of Old English.
Mm. Mm.
You know, there's a lot of knowledge in here. Like it said, a lot of the doctrines of the gospel, and it outlines the plan of salvation and tells men what they must do to gain peace in this life and eternal salvation in the life to come. It has a lot of this in there, but what's most important is where the book came from. And that's where a lot of faith comes in, is an experimentation.
That's the problem with you, because I don't have any faith. I feel I have a better way of understanding than simply deferring to faith.
Mm-hmm.
So I would obviously ask questions like, why were these put onto gold? How big were these? You know, it's like, it looks like the tablets of stone that Moses had, and with the Ten Commandments or whatever. It seems to be something similar. So what exactly did it say on these tablets? How big were they? How much information was there? What exactly did it say?
Well, to answer your questions, this is exactly what it said, and the size, I don't know. You could estimate the size, about like this big. I don't know.
You can't get much information on
No.
no.
But will you? Like, we'll probably have to go on the next little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Because I was thinking up to about 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because I can go on a bit. I can talk a bit. So.
But
And I've got lots of questions.
will you go ahead and we can come, if it's all right, we can come back and will you read, like, because it has the introduction. And then,
If you think there's a reason to, if you know, if this is helping you, because it's, I'm all for learning and understanding more,
Mhm.
but there's no way I'm going to end up a Mormon.
Okay.
So as long as you kind of understand that, what I get out of it is having a realistic understanding of what you believe, so that if I talk to Mormons again in the future, whether it's you or whether it's somebody else, or maybe go back to school, and somebody says something about Mormons, them nut jobs Mormons, they're right, and then I can maybe put them right.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a different set of nutty beliefs, but it's different to what they were saying, kind of thing. So as long as you're prepared to do that with that understanding, that you know, I'm not going to become converted, but it's just that I would like to understand more about what you do actually believe and what it actually says, and you don't mind me questioning in the strong way that I'm going to question things, then that's
Ask
fine.
as many questions in what way as possible.
That's great.
You know, we're not perfect teachers, so we'll explain the best of our knowledge.
Yeah, and maybe you yourself can maybe think, you know, if I say something and maybe you think, well, actually I hadn't thought of that, and so maybe you can do some research and think, well, no, actually, this is why I wanted to video it earlier, and then, you know, I could have maybe emailed you a copy, so that you could then look at yourselves and think, maybe I could have answered that a bit better, or whatever. So again, if you want to come back and maybe find out if you do want to be recorded next time, or if not, then it doesn't matter, then that's fine, and then we can do that. So so go on, sorry, carry on. And,
Well, is it alright if we come back next Saturday, maybe?
yeah, same time, I
Perfect.
don't see a problem with that, that's brilliant.
Well, it has the introduction and the testimony of the 3 witnesses. Well, it explains a little bit about the testimonies.
All right, so there's 8 witnesses here.
Testimony of 3 witnesses up top, then 8 witnesses
All
down
right,
below.
yeah.
Then the testimony of the prophet Joseph Smith.
Right.
There were 11 people who saw the plates, the gold plates.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Joseph Smith. And this is those people describing their experience and what went on.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a little brief explanation about the Book of Mormon.
Right.
And then it has a bunch of pictures. And then it starts off into the journal, or the Book of Mormon, the first book of Nephi.
Right.
And feel free to read as much as you want. But those first few pages explain a lot of background information on the Book of Mormon.
Right.
And then the Book of Mormon itself describes how they got to America, and how they left Jerusalem, and how they lived, and how this is the history book.
Right. Right. So there's a lot of history in here then. So it's really trying to explain how this came about. But outside of the Mormon faith, there's no real credibility with it. Am I right there? Other Christian denominations in America don't tend to agree.
A lot of people don't disagree with, or don't agree with how we claim it came about.
Yeah.
Through God and through modern revelation.
Yeah.
They don't agree with that, which they throw it away before they read it.
Yeah, and that's what I tend not to do with anything. I do like to at least take on board what's being said. But it's never enough for me to read one account. This is the problem. I will be reading this and I will be saying, yes, so you've asserted that, and this is why science works so well for me, because people make a certain assertion or a certain observation of the world, but then they have to find a way of testing that, and it has to be able to be tested by other people as well, and they have to be able to see the same or similar results. And history at its best works like that as well, that you have to have something solid. If you're an archaeologist and you're digging down and you find bits of pottery, or you find or even if you're a naturalist and you're digging and you find dinosaur bones or whatever, then these have to be observable, these have to be open to everybody. There has to be different people from different backgrounds being able to view the same information. So when I'm reading it, which I'm more than happy to do, I'll certainly get through the first part, and we'll see how far we go in, because it might get to the stage where I think, well, there's lots of assertions here, but really it's just telling a story, and I have no other independent way of verifying that. So I'll do as much as I can, and then at the next meeting, if you want to, we can kind of firm up a few things and see how I feel about it then.
Perfect.
If that's okay. Yeah, that's super. So what's this?
That's just a little bookmark with Jesus on it.
Right.
And then on the other paper, it says how we pray, and then it has a lot of questions with references to.
Watching the website last night as well, it seems it's very when they portray Jesus. There's some nice videos there, very well produced. There's obviously some money gone into producing some of those videos. Some of the actors are quite good. And we've had the problem here. There was a very, very, very good, for its time, there was a good 1970s series on the life of Jesus, and it was a what was it called? Producer called Franco Zeffirelli produced a program. It had Robert Powell playing Jesus Christ, and basically it had his life over something like 4 2-hour programs. It was a series, and it was acted. It was like 4 films, so it wasn't really a documentary. But it was this very Western idea of what Jesus would have looked like. Jesus would not have been white. He wouldn't have had flowing hair. He would almost certainly have had a beard. It would have looked very much like a Muslim looks today. And I balk when I see pictures like that of Jesus, because we know that people didn't look like that at that particular time. There is a lot of good information in non-biblical information, historical information about how people dressed, how they wore their hair, the utensils that they used. in Jerusalem and that part of the world in the Middle East at that particular time, what the colour of the skin was, and Jesus would not have looked like that. And it's a shame. It's a shame when still in America they don't seem to be able to portray Jesus as he would almost certainly have looked. You can't say for definite, but that is more like a 16th century interpretation, because a lot of Christians in the 16th century in Europe and in the UK would have looked like that. Long flowing hair, beard, like that, short beard, etc. And we know that because we have a lot of documentary of how people looked in the 16th century in the UK. There's a lot of information, a lot of paintings. If you do want to go somewhere while you're here, and you want to look at a little bit of the history of Britain, it might not be open because a lot of historic places close down in winter, so might have to wait till spring. Go to a place called Hardwick Hall.
Hardwick Hall.
Yeah, it's just down the motorway. Do you know where the M1 is? Motorway. Yeah. If you're going south, so you're heading towards London, it's literally turn off left around about Chesterfield. So Chesterfield is south of Sheffield and whatever. And it's an old, you can get it on the internet, Hardwick Hall. And it's a beautiful old mansion house of a very rich Earl, the Earl of Shrewsbury in the 14th, 15th century, I can't remember exactly. And his wife, Bess of Hardwick, was the second most richest person in the UK after Queen Elizabeth I. So yeah, it would have been 14 something. And she collected a lot of tapestries from around the world. So they have lots of pictures on them of people from India and Central Asia of how they would actually look like. These are the original tapestries. They're all very worn, they're torn and whatever. And there's also a fantastic hall with lots and lots of paintings that must be worth millions. And there's one at the very end of Queen Elizabeth I herself, I think on her 60th birthday or something, or some coronation, can't remember now. And that's the original painting. It's not a fake or whatever. And you just get and these can be verified, so they can be verified by carbon dating, they're verified by documentation, because obviously they've been in that collection for so long. So there is this independent verification of the historical context of that from a number of different sources. So yeah, it's just something that you might want to just go down and just immerse yourself in if you're trying to maybe understand where we come from as daft UK people today.
I'd love to.
I'd love to go check it out.